In Argentina, the government announced the end of more than 27,000 social plans, including those for retirees and pensioners. In Palestine, the Health Ministry confirmed that the Israeli genocidal operation in cooperation with the United States has killed over 25,000 Palestinians. In Uganda, Cuba handed over the presidency of the Group of 77 plus China, calling for unity, peace, and worldwide rejection of Israel's operation in Gaza. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Argentina's government announced the end of more than 27,000 social plans, including those for retirees and pensioners. The Ministry of Human Capital pointed out through its X account some incompatibilities detected by the National Administration of Social Security and the National Tax and Social Identification System, such as retirement or pension benefits, residence abroad, among others. This measure is part of the preliminary judicial investigation into a corruption network in the Ministry of Social Development and affects beneficiaries who received retirement benefits or who received unemployment pensions, despite being self-employed workers residing outside the country. In Ecuador, more than 2,000 people have been arrested during 11 days of operations following the declaration of internal armed conflict by President Daniel Noboa. In this regard, the National Police reported that 158 of the arrests are suspects for terrorist crimes, while 32 prisoners were recaptured after escaping from prison. Authorities detailed that so far there have been 29,000 operations throughout the nation, resulting in the death of 5 alleged criminals. Meanwhile, social movements denounced the violation of human rights as well as several abuses by the armed forces. In this context, human rights organizations denounced rights violations in prisons during the state of emergency and internal armed conflict. At the same time, they demanded the Ombudsman's office report on the actions of the security forces inside prisons, a request based on the UN Convention Against Torture. For its part, the Committee of Relative for Justice in Prisons affirms to have reports of deprivation of water and food, beatings, and threats exercised by the armed forces against the inmates. Authorities confirmed the kidnapping of social leader Maria Alejandra Acosta in the Catatumbo region of northeastern Colombia. The incident occurred in the village of Aspasicas, rural area of the municipality of La Playa de Belén, when she was on her way to a meeting. Her 2 escorts, identified as Esteban Davinel Delgado and Esferizon Vicente Monroy, were also kidnapped. The leader is coordinator of the Popular Women's Foundation, which defends the rights of farmers and Catatumbo women. The Ombudsman Office has taken action after learning of the incident. In the United States, according to data provided by the regional health departments, the Arctic storm that has hit the country has already left 83 people dead. The count was made by the media in the absence of national information. Details that in Tennessee, in the south of the country, there are already 19 deaths in weather-related events. In the west, the situation is even worse. In Oregon, there are already 16 confirmed deaths, in addition to reports of power outages and risk on the roads. States like Kentucky, Illinois, or New York have also raised their deaths due to the weather. This Sunday, the situation could worsen as temperatures will drop below -10 degrees. Russia has become China's largest oil supplier, displacing Saudi Arabia. Data released on Saturday by Chinese customs show a record 107 million metric tons of crude oil sold to Beijing. China reportedly challenged all Western sanctions imposed against Moscow in order to be able to buy large quantities of oil at a better price for its processing plants. Imports from Saudi Arabia, until now the largest supplier to the Asian giant, fell by 1.8% thanks to the sanctions imposed by the Western Russia. The move by Washington and Brussels also helped to boost the price of Russian crude oil, known as ESPO. A commercial airliner disappeared from riders since Saturday night in Afghanistan. This Sunday, Indian authorities confirmed that it crashed in the north of that nation. According to the Indian Ministry of Civil Aviation, the commercial plane took off from an airport in India, but it was not registered as a scheduled flight. It is a charter flight with a Moroccan flag, apparently bound for Russia. Details about the number of crew and passengers have not yet been confirmed. The Taliban government of Afghanistan certified that the incident occurred in the northern province of Badakhshan. Mobilizations continue in France against the immigration law adopted by Parliament in December 2023. Social and trade organizations denounced the government initiative as contradictory to Republican values such as solidarity, fraternity, and equality. Thousands of citizens took to the streets to demand the repeal of the legal instrument that limits family reunification, the regularization of undocumented workers, and also establishes a guarantee for the admission of foreign students in the country's universities. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Ministry of Health in Gaza updated its health records and confirmed that the Israeli genocide operation in cooperation with the United States has killed over 25,000 Palestinians. The latest update has added 178 new mortal victims and 293 wounded from the occupiers' operations on the Strip in the last 24 hours. In coincidence with the report of the Palestinian authorities, the spokesman of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Society's International Federation, Tommaso Della Longa, claims that the humanitarian crisis is reaching catastrophic levels and is worsening steadily. In the same context, the occupying forces attacked again the city of Khan Younis, south of the Gaza Strip. The latest incursions of the genocidal operation have killed over 17,000 Palestinian women and children in 106 days, leaving several dead and deceased. The Al-Manar neighborhood was the focus of bombardments carried out by Israel with the support of the U.S. The whole area was shaken by missiles and a subsequent fire that left dozens of people wounded. Once again, we go with our correspondent in Gaza, Noor Harasin, to learn about the latest updates in the Palestinian enclave in the day 107 of Israeli attacks.
Day 107, Israel now is intensifying its attacks on the city of Khan Younis. Actually, what is happening in Khan Younis city now reminds us of what was happening in northern Gaza and how Israel actually intensified its attacks in northern Gaza, asking Palestinians to move to the south. And after Palestinians moved to the south, but now Israel continue bombing and attacking the cities where Palestinians actually took refuge in. In one of the Israeli strikes on Khan Younis city, Palestinian journalist Ahmed Abu Ujairem was killed, and this brings up the Palestinian death toll among Palestinian journalists. Up to 113 Palestinian journalists were killed in Gaza since the 7th of October. In the latest statement for the Palestinian Health Ministry, in a joint statement with the Palestinian media office, they said that 178 Palestinians were killed in Gaza today, and this brings up the death toll among Palestinians in Gaza since the 7th of October up to 25,105 Palestinians. 70% of them are women and children. This catastrophic number, this horrible number, made Palestinians here on the ground actually prepare themselves and cope to the fact that this war is gonna take more than 1 or 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even more than 1 month, because they came to the conclusion that if the death toll reached this big number and nothing has happened from the international community, so maybe this war will be continuous. These are actually the voices of Israeli strikes on the city of Rafah, and this city is marked as a green area where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are now taking refuge. Nur Harazin, teleSUR, Gaza.
Gaza is facing a cruel and horrifying situation as the days go by are forced to cope with the increasing deterioration of their living conditions and as displaced people face shortage of food, clothing and the effects of the weather. Let's look at the following testimonies.
We are from Gaza. We are displaced by the war. We came here and we stayed in the schools. We are here looking for food. We are without money. In the schools there is no food every day, so we look for food that they prepare here. There are days they give you beans, another day peas, eggplants or lentils. Yeah. I go out early every morning and I wait for them to open and then I wait for my turn to fill up. Then I go home, pray them eat their prayer and have lunch.
In Europe and other countries around the world, citizens mobilized this Saturday in support of the Palestinian cause and against the Israeli genocide. In Italy, demonstrators gathered in the city of Milan to raise their voices in rejection of the siege against Gaza. Solidarity was also shown in the city of Uppsala, Sweden, where people called for a permanent ceasefire in the strip. Likewise, in Denmark, citizens rallied in the Copenhagen region. Demonstrations were also held in the United Kingdom and France to show their support for the people in Gaza amidst the ongoing Israeli attacks. Also in Spain, citizens of more than 70 cities took to the streets to show their support for the Palestinian cause. Under the motto "Stop the Genocide in Palestine," social movements in Barcelona mobilized this Saturday in support of Palestine. Demonstrators described the state of Israel as genocidal. They also criticized the president of the Spanish government, Pedro Sánchez, for not taking measures to reach a ceasefire in the Palestinian enclave. Also in another municipality of Bilbao, they called for an end to the arms trade and to relations with Israel. Mobilizations also took place in Malaga, Toledo, the Canary Islands, and other parts of the country. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience, you can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. For a short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. Cuba has handed over the presidency of the Group of 77 plus China, calling for unity, peace, and worldwide rejection of Israel's operation in Gaza. During his speech at the third summit of the Peoples of the South, held in the city of Kampala, Uganda, Cuban Vice President Salvador Valdez said that it was a source of great pride and honor for Havana to share the G77 plus China. Valdez recalled that his country fulfilled a fruitful agenda of activities despite the criminal, economic, and commercial and financial blockade imposed by the United States. In this regard, he thanked the group for its support during the island's mandate at the head of the group, while wishing the greatest success for Uganda. Cuban Vice President Salvador Valdez called for the unity of the G77 and China as a mechanism to change the international order established by centuries of colonialism and dependence.
Dear friends, it has been a source of great pride and honor for Cuba to share the G77 plus China for the first time. We have done so despite a criminal economic, commercial and financial blockade intensified since the second half of the 2019 to a more cruel and inhuman extreme dimension. We have deeply appreciated the group's firm stance against the unilateral coercive measures applied against several of our members, including the unjust blockade imposed on the Cuban people for the past 60 years.
Cuban Vice President Salvador Valdez called for the unity of G77 and China as a mechanism to change the centuries-old established international order of colonialism and dependence.
Excelencias, unidad debe ser la palabra de orden.
Your Excellencies, in these difficult times, when maneuvers to divide the countries of the South are proliferating, unity must be the word of order for the 77 plus China Govt. Our effective exercise of cohesive action is indispensable and urgent in order to change the current unjust international order and free ourselves, once and for all, from the conditions of absolute disadvantage centuries of colonialism, neocolonialism, and dependence have put us under.
Also in Uganda, the United Nations Secretary-General urged the members of the G77 and China to lead a global change. In his speech at the Third South Summit, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres stressed the opportunity to build a future of justice, peace and prosperity together with the bloc of countries. In this way, Guterres pointed out that effective global action is required to solve problems. However, the international system is outdated. Guterres also mentioned that the UN Security Council is paralyzed by geopolitical divisions and should be reformed.
Righting our troubled world depends on effective global action. Yet the international system is out of date, out of time and out of step, reflecting a bygone age when many of your countries were still colonized. The United Nations Security Council is paralyzed by geopolitical divisions, and its composition does not reflect the reality of today's world. It must be reformed.
The UN Secretary-General considered it necessary to reorganize the reforms of the international financial architecture in order to respond to the requirements of developing countries.
We rely on the G77 plus China to make the Summit of the Future a success, to seize this opportunity and to find common solutions. The Summit will consider deep reforms of the international financial architecture. Financial institutions and frameworks created after the Second World War still largely correspond to the power relations and the global economy of that time. They must be reformed so that they are truly universal, reflect with justice the realities of today, and are much more responsive to the needs of developing countries.
From Uganda, in an interview for teleSUR, Nicaragua's Foreign Affairs Minister Denis Moncada said today's world is unjust and unequal, and he urged for political, economic, and social and cultural transformations.
The world is unjust, is unequal. There is an imbalance, and it is necessary to transform and change the relationships in the world between developed and developing countries. There is an extreme poverty, there is extreme inequality, there is an unipolarity which must also be transformed. The world needs to be multipolar. There should be multiple centers with actual decisions-making power in all areas: political, economic, social, cultural, organizational.
Nicaragua's Foreign Minister Denis Moncada said that the countries gathered at the G77 Summit plus China reject Israel's crimes in Gaza and demand the right of Palestine to exist as a free, independent and sovereign state.
There has been a firm, solid consensus of the countries represented here that Palestine has the right to exist as free, independent and sovereign state. These countries have been expressing their condemnation of the genocide being committed by the State of Israel against Palestine, and we must put a stop to it, and we must say enough is enough, and we must be resolute in putting an end to it, demanding a permanent to stop the bombings and the inhuman and savage crime against innocent women and children.
In Yemen, US and UK bombing raids killed at least 75 people. According to local media, this Saturday's bombings against Yemen left among the dead military advisors of the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard and the Hezbollah resistance movement. The military advisors were providing support to Yemen in the operation to block the passage of ships with supplies for Israel as a way of protesting against the genocide in Gaza. Fighter planes and warships of the United States, United Kingdom and its allies have been attacking Yemen since January 12 under the pretext of defending the free passage in the Red Sea. We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.